And
So,
I uh, I have this show that you are all kind of familiar with right now, and through this show, I use it as a vehicle to get to know my guests, and we'll talk to them, and we ask them certain questions about how you started off in life. And a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at the internet, and I saw this little guy, man. I saw him play his trumpet, and I started looking at how he was had all these tutorials on Facebook. And I know this Facebook is a vehicle. Basically, you can learn stuff. It can be used as a device to learn and teach. At the same time, it can be constructive and destructive. So I'm saying if you really know how to use technology, you use it as a device either to make something accomplish greatness, and also it can also be used to help your career. So right now, I'd like to introduce to you a fabulous young guy, and he plays the trumpet, which I'm real high on trumpet teachers and trumpet students and trumpet players because it's an instrument that I have played for years, and I'm gonna ask you some questions later on about this horn that I chose to play, which it took me through a lot of ups and downs in life, because it's really a challenging instrument, but either it can make you or break you. And
yeah,
right now, I'd like to talk to Mr. Joe Pinto from New York City. How you doing today, Joe?
good. How are you, Richard?
Doing all right. Well, like I said before, I'm going to start off asking you a series of questions,
Sure.
and basically you can be brief with it, or you can talk to a little bit, and you can go into detail about some of the things you
Hmm.
want to talk about. So basically, feel free to talk about anything we really say today. And
Sure.
one of the first questions, and I know I have talked to a lot of musicians, and we're trying to find out when did you really get this feeling to be a musician? I knew that playing an instrument was your thing.
Sure.
Like I'm trying to say the start in music. When did you
Hmm.
find out that you had a knack to want to play an instrument?
Sure. So to go way back, um, I used to go over my grandparents' house, my mom's mom and dad. Probably when I was 5, 6, 7 years old or so, and she had a one of those spin it upright pianos kicking around her house, and she could read music. She never played professionally, my grandmother, but she could read, she could play piano, fairly decent. And I would go over there and just kind of like mess around with the keys, and not knowing anything about music. But every time I would go over, my parents would realize, like, oh, he's very interested in music. It seems like he might have an ear for it. So maybe we'll get him involved with piano lessons. As he gets older. So I would sit at the piano, and then my grandmother would come over and kind of she would play some stuff. She was very into classical opera type genre of music, so she would play a bunch of different stuff on the piano, and I would just kind of sit there and listen, and then try to do what she was doing, and she would take my hand and you know try to figure everything out that she was playing with my hand, which obviously was very challenging for her, I'm sure, because I'm a 5, 6, 7-year-old child, not really wanting to listen and just kind of bang the keys. So, it kind of started there, getting exposed to piano. And I actually started piano lessons in fourth grade. However old you are in fourth grade, I have no idea. But that's when it kind of all started with music, taking music lessons. I started with piano, and then in fifth grade I got offered to take up band in the public school system, and that's where I selected and chose the trumpet. And I actually wanted to play saxophone, tenor sax. And I remember telling my parents that day we got offered an instrument that I wanted to play sax, and my dad he was like, "Oh, the sax is a very cool instrument, but I always wanted to play the trumpet." And my dad was always obsessed with those, those rock horn bands like Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and
Yeah.
Tears. He always liked the powerhouse, Earth, Wind, and Fire, some funk, all that stuff, and that's amazing stuff. I listen to that now, and always have. But he's like, "Why don't you play the trumpet? That's something I always wanted to do and take up when I was your age, and I think it would be cool if you, play the trumpet." So that's I listened to my parents obviously at that age, so I picked the trumpet. And I grew up in middle school was in band, elementary school band, and then in high school is where I really started to take it seriously. I had two very good private lesson teachers, Boston guys. That's where I grew up, in Boston, Massachusetts, a little outside, like 30 minutes north of Boston, Beverly, Mass.
Yeah.
And that's where I grew up and lived, pretty much my whole life until 6 years ago when I moved to New York City. But Garrett Savluck was my first really amazing trumpet teacher that I had, that really helped me progress with the instrument and jazz improvisation. Um, and it just kind of all started there. And then after high school, with the jazz band we had in high school, it was very good. We competed. I won some outstanding soloist awards around the city and all that with the jazz band that we had. So then that's when I was kind of like, what, I wanna take this seriously, and this is kind of what I want to do with my career. And how people say, "Oh, you're gonna be a musician. I don't know. You're not gonna make any money." Blah blah blah. We get a bad rap sometimes for
Yeah, I
people.
know. I know a little bit about that.
Yeah. And surprisingly, my folks, my parents, they were very supportive with my decision, and they saw that I really took it seriously and was doing well with it, and started to sound decent at that time. And I auditioned for Berklee College of Music in Boston. This was back in 2004, I believe. That's when, yeah, 2004 is when I started Berklee College of Music. And I graduated there in 2008 with a degree in jazz studies, trumpet performance.
Mhm.
And after that, after college, worked on Carnival Cruise Lines for a bit, which I absolutely hated, to be completely honest. I did that for a few months, and then ended up sticking around Boston, trying to get to know people on the scene there, and doing some club dates, with different wedding bands around Boston, and getting involved with different, small group jazz combo stuff. I ended up putting together my own jazz combo and started writing original music and everything. And then ended up moving to New York City back in 2012. And ever since I moved here, I think it was the greatest decision I ever made in my life to move to the city. Knowing it was going to be challenging, and knowing that I had to start from the ground up, and try to figure out my career as a professional trumpet player. It was hard at first, and I mean it still is. You got to really hustle around here. You got to network. You got to know the right people. You got to get in with the right people.
Mhm.
Um, and that's in general, I feel like that's the way life works. It's just always hustling, always trying to get ahead and be the best and at what you do. You know. Um, so it's the hustle that I feel like is what can make you successful here in New York City. Because it's such a big scene, and there's thousands of trumpet players here that are great, that play just as well, if not better than you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's always just a hustle.
So I have heard that you played Broadway. Broadway. What are some of those Broadway shows like? Being a
Yeah, so I haven't done any actual Broadway productions like here in New York City.
Mhm.
Um, well, actually, that's not true. Let me go back. I have done one production here, but to start with, I did a national Broadway tour of Woody Allen's Bullets Over Broadway. That was back in 2015 to uh, let's see, the summer of 2016. So I was touring around the whole country, going to different theaters and everything, with that show, playing second trumpet. So there was two trumpets. I played the second book, which had a lot of jazz stuff in it,
Mm.
Dixieland, really cool cup mute solos, and it was a very cool show, kind of mafia oriented. Um, it was very cool. So I did that for a year and a half, and then after I got off the road with that, that was around the whole country. I ended up doing another Broadway production, which was a short run of the Christmas musical or holiday musical, Elf, the Christmas holiday musical. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, you know, it's based off of that Will Ferrell movie,
Will
Elf.
Ferrell movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so they made a Broadway musical production out of it that was touring, and we went to Canada for 3 weeks. Then we were in Boston for 3 weeks, and then we were here in New York City for 3 weeks at Madison Square Garden. So that was a very cool opportunity, that I'm, you know, I was very happy to do. You know, it was a once in a lifetime, well, hopefully not once in a lifetime experience, but it was very cool. It was a lot of fun, and it really it helped me out as a musician to do a big production like that. You know, to get to know how everything works, how, you know, the design of the show works, where in the pit, you know, with all the electronics we had and microphone placements, and using the sound EQ to adjust everything, because you have headphones, so everything from everyone in the pit is coming in through your headphones, and including
Oh,
yourself, so you can mix everything on this panel that you have in the pit. Everyone has one. Can't remember the name of the equipment. I totally forget what it's called. But that was a very cool experience, because I'd never done anything like that before. So it was almost like a recording session every single show you did,
yeah.
you know, because
I
everything
would say
is
it's sound like writing soundtracks for movies, for a movie too. You know what I'm saying? That's I think the same
sure.
thing they do. They have headsets, and then at the same time you're writing music. You know, Miles Davis was the first one really to do that. I had seen him where he went to Paris and he did this original movie, and
Hmm.
he kind of when he started writing a lot of modal stuff, he started writing the situations for the scenery. You know, yeah, I know he couldn't
Sure.
speak French, but he knew what he was doing. You know,
Of course.
yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it was almost like it was a
yeah,
recording session in a
yeah,
way. Every, you know, you want to try to play your best. You don't want to clam any notes. You know, you just want to be on top of your game every single night. And you know how it is being a trumpet player.
yeah.
That can be hard.
It can be
You know,
hard.
if your chops are sore, or you're having a rough go at it that one night, you got no options. You gotta make it work, man. You know, you gotta just do it. You know, and I always say, you know, I always, I always like what Nike, the shoe company or clothing company, what they say. Their slogan is "Just do it." I live by that, man. Just do it. You know, even if your chops are sore, just do it. I mean, don't think about it. You know,
You know,
as soon as you start,
later on in the discussion, we're gonna talk a little about that about
yeah,
these,
it's mental,
uh,
man.
about that
You
too.
want to, once you get in your head, you're screwed in a way. You don't want to get in your head, you know, and you start thinking about shit. Like, you don't want that. You just want to do it, you
Hmm.
know, because like I said, once you start thinking about it, you're setting yourself up for failure in a way. And that's, you know, with trumpet, you know, the slightest tension you have in your body or in your head,
Makes that note.
that's it, man.
That's it. Yeah, your
That's
best one
it.
is hard.
You're
You know.
setting yourself up for
Yeah.
this, you know, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, trumpet's hard enough as it is.
Okay, now we're gonna talk a little bit about your horn.
Okay.
What is your horn of choice? Now, we did a little bit of talking before we got on, on this program today.
Yep.
We were talking about horns, and I'm a Yamaha guy. I play all the Yamahas. I have tried the Gibsons. I have tried the Bach.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Bach. The Bach is all right, but to me, I think a Bach is kind of like a. It's not really a band horn. It's mostly like a symphonic horn to me. I mean, it doesn't. the brightness and the brashness that you need to use when you're ensemble units. I just can't get with a Bach, and I'm just like that,
Right. And I totally hear what you're saying. And, yeah, Bach is, a lot of people think, Bach Stradivarius, oh, symphonic, orchestral work. But, look at Wynton Marsalis. In my opinion, he sounded the best on his Bach back in the 80s and early 90s. I mean, there's clips I've checked out and of him with his Bach, man, and holy crap, he sounds amazing. And I think his tonal clarity and sound with his Bach is so much more pure than his Monet. And that, again, this is just my opinion, and take it for whatever it's worth. But I think Bach can be an excellent horn, depending on which one you have, for all around playing, for jazz, you name it, man. But the Bach I have is a 1953 New York Bach 43. So it's old, man. It's a raw brass.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. It
Raw
works
brass.
in raw brass. Yep, there's
Oh,
no plating on it.
yeah.
And it's a medium large bore, and it just works for me, man. It's a great jazz horn, and when you push it, it really lights up, which is cool. And it has kind of that like 60s Bach like jazz sound that a lot of those jazz guys, the Cats, were using back then, you know. Um, and it's a very cool horn, man. Um, but as far as the newer Bach stuff goes, I'm not too familiar with it. I haven't really tried and experimented a lot with that because I'm so stuck on the horn I have. But prior to the Bach, I owned Stomvy USA trumpet, which was a big bell. It was brushed gold plated, very diffused sounding. It was a cool horn, very unique horn. Um, but I actually I don't use it anymore, man. And I actually did a trade with one of my mentors, Jim Rotundi. He's one of my mentors' favorite trumpet, one of my favorite trumpet players to listen to and transcribe. And I had the honor to work with him a little bit and take lessons from him. And we're doing a trade, and he's going to take the Stomvy, and I'm going to get his vintage 1959 Colicchio, which is a large bore horn.
Yeah, that's what Freddie played, right? Yeah.
It's not. Freddie did play a large bore. I think his was a little different. He played the 3/9, which is the big largest bell with I think a 9 lead pipe, if I remember right. But this Colicchio has no specs. It's that old. It was made by Dominic right when he moved to LA. So I'm excited to get it. Haven't tried it, but you know what? The Bach is my main horn, and I have an endorsement with Bach. So that's my pride and joy horn. So I'll still be using it.
He invited me, but I used to read Downbeat magazine a lot, man, and I picked this article up in the Downbeat. It said something about the Colicchio trumpets and call him. I called the guy and on the phone. He said,
Yep.
Come on up, man. I got a horn. I'll make it for you, man. Come on up. And I said, man, I don't want a horn that I'm playing and it fall apart in my hand when I'm playing.
Right.
I heard some bad reports on that too. You know what I'm saying? You got
Sure.
a lot of stuff that you make, and when it's customized, basically,
Yep.
against being on the assembly line, and I think
Sure.
Yamaha is a assembly line horn, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know much about Yamaha either. And I've tried the Xenos. The Xenos are great horns, man. They sound good, and they play well, from bottom to top, top to bottom. They're a great all-around horn. And I tried a few of them. It's just not really the sound that I want. And I'm a big believer that if you have a sound that you're going for, that you hear in your head, and you're not achieving that with the equipment you have, then it's going to make playing harder because you're not getting that sound.
I was listening to a Tower Power song this while ago. Say they don't change horses in the middle of a stream. You know that? You heard that tune?
Wait, say it again.
Pow, pow, don't chain horses in the middle of the stream. Don't
Sure,
chain
sure.
horses in the
Yep.
middle.
I
You don't change. You
used
know,
to
when you
love.
got something, you got it. Don't change it. If it's working good for you, stay with it.
Yep.
And it's the same
Exactly.
thing like mouthpieces too. Now, if you got something you working with, then you, well, I'm gonna try this, man.
Hmm.
And later on we're gonna go off in the same thing with the mouthpiece. It's the
Sure.
same problem with them too. And so,
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, man. Like you gotta, everyone tries different mouthpieces. I'm not very big into gear. I don't know much about gear, like spec wise. Like, yeah, I know the basics, cup sizes for mouthpieces, rim sizes. But when it comes to backbores and throats, I just give me something that works for me and that I'm comfortable with. Don't talk specs because I'm not going to understand that. I just never really got into that.
okay.
I'd rather just, put the mouthpiece in, and if it feels good, great. If it's working for me, great. If not, then it's not going to work. I don't care what throat or what backbore the friggin' mouthpiece has. That doesn't do anything for me. And I feel like a lot of guys get wrapped up in that. When they should just figure out if it feels good or not. If it doesn't feel good, it doesn't matter what backbore or throat the mouthpiece
Okay,
has.
we're gonna go on. I'm gonna go in a little bit more further detail.
Sure.
When I first started playing the trumpet, and I didn't really know anything about anatomy, and I learned that when you're in New York.
That's yeah, man. Welcome to the city. You get that all day long here.
Okay, when I first started playing the trumpet, I learned that the diaphragm is mostly the one that really controls the amount of wind that comes inside your trumpet. So basically, I started doing these exercises and learning how this muscle push the air up in your lungs. And
Right.
you know,
Well, check this out, man. Your lips are just there to buzz.
yeah,
That's it, man.
yeah,
You're really manipulating the air. It's all about your airstream with the horn. And
uh-huh,
that's what I've learned over the years of playing. Like some dudes play off over here, some dudes are very center, some
yeah,
people are over here, some people play lower, some people play higher. Once
yeah,
you start thinking about all that shit and changing things around, which I've done before and had regret doing, because then you're all messed up, man. You just gotta play where it feels comfortable, and if it's working and there's no issues, then that's working for you, that specific setup.
yeah. I had a teacher did.
In the airstream, like your lips are just kind of there for the mouthpiece to go, and then everything else is your body, your air, from your diaphragm. And I tell my students this all the time: don't force, don't push, that mouthpiece, the piece of metal, into your chops. That's not gonna help you. It's actually gonna fatigue you and hurt you
Yeah,
in the long run. Everything is your air support, how you're supporting the note with your air, and yeah, compression and tongue placement, of course, that's all. You
hmm,
manipulate all that with your air, and naturally when you go higher, your chops compress,
right,
they get flatter,
yeah,
that's how that works. And it's like a tennis ball. So if I had a tennis ball in my hand and you were squeezing it, you're getting tighter, your corners are compressing, and boom, that's where, when it's tight like that,
yeah,
you're gonna be able to sizzle up there
yeah,
if you're using your air correctly. If you're too pinched, or if your aperture is too closed, and you're going to cut off the airstream,
hmm,
and it's going to get pinched, and you're not going to go anywhere with that. So it's all a matter of manipulating your air and learning how to use your airstream, with the chops that you have. you know so there's a lot to trumpet playing that I figured out, and recently figured out within the past 2 years for myself. And the other thing is, and I know you wanted to talk about this in a bit, mouthpieces. I
hmm,
recently just switched to a different mouthpiece about 2.5, 3 months ago now, and it's a Storm V Flex piece. And man, it's amazing. I found out that I was working way too hard. The other piece I was playing was a 3B, and that, it's like a toilet bowl, man. It's deep, and I just found that there was just no comparison. And I tried playing the 3B again a few days ago. I'm like, man, how the hell did I do this for 6 years?
Let me ask you something, Dale. You have never tried one of those heavyweight mouthpieces, have you? Been the Shooky heavyweight, the one with the long,
I
long.
haven't, man. I've tried a heavy the blank. It was the Megatone, Bach Megatone, the heavyweight blank they make.
Kind of
That
thing.
was many years ago, and from what I remember, I didn't like the rim on it. The rim wasn't comfortable for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, there's so many different mouthpieces out there, and you just kind of have to find the combo that works for you. And the other thing is, it's not even the combo that works for you all the time. It's the combo of the horn and mouthpiece as well.
Haunted mouthpiece, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have one mouthpiece that works great with your setup, if your buddy has a horn that you're trying, and the mouthpiece isn't, it could be that the mouthpiece isn't working on that specific horn. It plays different.
Well,
You know?
my dad played the trumpet, man. He went off
Mhm.
to the army, man, and he was in the army band,
Nice.
and he came home. He had this cushion rim. They call it Rudy Muck. You ever heard of Rudy?
Oh yeah. Of course, man. Those
I
are
never seen nothing
vintage.
like that in my life, man. It was cushion, man. It had, and I was like, ain't you ever getting wind through that little cup in that? But they liked it, and it had a thing
Yeah.
about special guys like Cat Anderson back in the day, Count Bass and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, they thought they had to use these devices all to get these high notes, in there and stuff.
Hmm.
And then when you want to try to play melodic stuff, you kind of suffer a little bit because everything basically hood up on high notes. And when you want to play, being a melodic player or just a jazz trumpeter, you kind of suffer a little bit. That's another thing I want to ask you about. I would say like there's a little bit of difference between being a lead player and a screech man. And then when you got the difference, you go from the second trumpet to the third trumpet to the jazz trumpet.
Hmm.
Does the lead man sometimes, because he's concentrating in the high range all the time, and then when you want him to go to be a legitimate guy, you want him to solo and play. He might have another gig playing symphonic work. How does he basically adopt between the switching and going back and forth from these two different idioms like that?
Sure.
You know,
So I'm not, when I do section work and big band work and some recording stuff, like I never get a call for lead. It's always either the jazz chair in a big band, or I play, which is usually second or fourth or fifth trumpet, or I'll play third or fourth. It's usually 2 to 5 I'll play. I never really play lead. I'm not, I can get up there, man, but I'm not much of a lead player, to be completely honest. Like, that's not really my thing. you know
yeah.
um if I have to, sure, I can do it, but again, I gotta switch mouthpieces, because what I play on now is not gonna work after two tunes.
Well, what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say, Joe, is like if you were the band leader,
Hmm.
you were trying to construct a recording session. Basically, you would have to have like a call book of different people that could play in the high range. That's
Right.
instead of trumpet players. You got another a jazz man that plays. So you have certain picks. What I'm
Sure.
saying is
Sure.
a specialization. You like a gunslinger. That's your thing. You hire him just to stay in the high range. I don't want you to do nothing else. You know,
Hmm.
and that's the way it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it took a
definitely. I
while
mean,
to learn
there's
that because I had this guy that was in Dallas. He was trying to start up a band, and he asked me to do this, and I told him, man, I'm not a high range guy, man. I'm a melodic trump. Well, what's wrong with you? Can't play? It's not I can't play. It's just not my style.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then
man, everyone has their thing. Everyone does their thing and has their thing. And that's why there's legit like lead players, at least here in New York City, in LA, and Nashville. There's specific guys that get calls just for lead, because they know, those guys know, the contractors know that, hey, this guy's going to nail the part. He's a lead player. Boom, I want him. And it works the same way here in the city. I'm going to, everyone has their go-to guys, girls, women, men, whatever, that they call first, because they've either worked with them before, they have a good reputation, and they're good at what they do. So yeah, there are people that get the lead calls because they know that they're a lead. The person that's hiring knows that they're a good lead trumpet player, and that's their forte. That's what they excel at. That's their thing. Whereas for me, I always get a call for a jazz gig, or for section work, or I used to do a ton of different wedding band stuff, top 40, Earth, Wind and Fire. I can play all that stuff. Do I enjoy it as much as jazz? No, but that's the way the scene works, man.
Yeah,
What's
you
that?
gotta pay the bills. You
The
gotta pay
bills.
the
You got to
bills.
pay your bills, man.
Pay the
That's
bills.
right, and that's the stuff that pays the bills.
Yeah.
So it's you can't have your cake and eat it too. In other words, you gotta be versatile for sure. But to go back to lead playing, like that's not my strength. I would say that's not my thing. That's not what I focus on. That's certainly not what I practice. I'm always transcribing, Freddie Hubbard, Sonny Rollins, Hank Mobley. I listen to a ton of different sax players. I actually prefer listening to sax players
You
and
like
trumpet
sax,
players.
man. I'm the same way too, Joe. I like
Yep.
saxophone players. And now basically I
Yeah.
was thinking myself being a saxophonist and a guitarist. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I listen to a lot of guitar lines too. And
Yeah.
uh
Freddie Hubbard and Jim Rotundi are the two cats I listen to for trumpet players. And yeah, should I listen to other trumpet players? Of course. And, when I'm on Instagram, I see all that stuff. Fabrizio Basso, he's amazing. Italian dude in Italy. If you haven't checked him out, check him out, man. He's phenomenal. Amazing player.
mhm.
Uh, there's so many different guys I was exposed to just from Instagram. That's a big platform now where we can all publicize our stuff for free and get our music out there for exposure, and hopefully someone sees it. And that's happened to me a few times. I'll post something and I get a direct message from someone saying, hey, I need a trumpet player for this gig here in the city. Can you do this? And it's I got a few recording stuff with that, from Instagram, just from posting some stuff. Some guy needed a horn player for his album, so I'm on a few tracks of this pop singer. And it's Instagram is very cool with that stuff. You never know who's watching.
Now I want to talk to you a little bit about, we were talking about mouthpiece placement and practice
Hmm.
time, stuff like that. And it also going around with the partner we got on the wall over there, man. I was doing some studying, and I was reading how Freddie, man, started having lift problems, and he had this gig with Joe Henderson, and Joe Henderson kind of went out on him, and so Freddie had to start playing all different choruses, man. He playing 34 and 84 choruses, man, on his tunes, and basically, he had the steel in his mouth, and it started getting hurt, and he wasn't paying attention to it, and then finally he had to have surgery on it, and it kind of cut his career,
Hmm.
because he basically wasn't Freddie no more. He could play the flugelhorn, but he couldn't push it.
Right. Yeah. No. So there's I've heard different stories from many different people of what actually happened with Freddie. I've heard numerous different stories with that, of how he cut his lip, how that happened. And I don't want to get into it because I don't know the true story, but I've heard many stories. One being yours, that you just said, and then there's a few other ones that I heard. But yeah, man, Freddie was one of a kind, man. He was the baddest. And he knew it, man. He had that swag. He could friggin' play the shit out of the horn. He's amazing. And it's he was
Yeah.
just incredible, man. And the stuff he plays is just, it's unreal, and it's amazing that you can play that on the horn. And that's why I love transcribing him, and just kind of like what I do with transcriptions is I'll just take I used to transcribe full solos,
Mm.
note for note. I don't
Right.
do that anymore. I don't find it beneficial unless it's a tune I really want to focus in on and analyze and dial in and everything. But if I hear something from someone that I really like, I'll transcribe that specific phrase they played and kind of incorporate it into my own playing in all 12 keys. That way I can utilize it and have it come out, hopefully come out after playing it a ton of times, and practicing it, and just kind of like make it my own. But Freddie, I've done that a lot with and transcribed a ton of stuff of Freddie. And yeah, man, you just can't touch him. He's my all-time idol, my favorite. As you can see, I got the poster. I actually got another one I can't hang up because I have no room. I live in a very small apartment, man, with my girlfriend. So we're actually looking into a bigger place so we can, it won't be as cluttered. But I have another poster under the couch right now I can show you if you want. It's actually from Dwayne. I bought it from Dwayne, his son. Yeah.
Dwayne told me he was gonna send me one of his suits one time, man. His suits and his handkerchiefs and stuff, all that, man. I said, man, you got a
Yeah.
lot of memorabilia, man. He said, we say this
Yeah,
back.
man. I love, it's inspiration. It's all about inspiration, man. You got to
Somebody
have
threw away
things
a
that are
lot of
motivating.
stuff, man. They threw away a lot of stuff, man, when he died, man. It's stuff.
Yeah. Crazy.
Um, okay, now what I really was talking about how
Yeah.
practice,
Sorry. I went off on a tangent, man. Sorry.
practicing and knowing that you, like you said, we was talking about how you was in studio or you were doing this session work and you didn't really feel up for it and you did it anyway. What I'm trying to say, you got some kind of damage in your life, in your mouth, or you having some kind of issue that. When do you think a person basically should rest playing these horns? These
Okay.
instruments.
Yep. So this is the way I do things, and it's been working for me for years. I take every single Sunday off from the horn. I don't touch it. I don't do anything. I don't even listen to music on Sundays. The rest of the week, music, 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 playing, 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 all the time. Um, and that's not saying playing all day. That's really bad for your chops. You want to rest, in between. I try to do 20-minute increments practice sessions throughout the week, and
Mm.
then I'll rest for 20 minutes, and then I'll play again for 20 minutes. And then, like, when you're resting, your lips are a muscle, man. You got blood flowing in there, you got tiny little membranes, muscles, and it's like an athlete. If you're working hard and training for a marathon, you don't do that all in one sitting, man. You got to rest. And it's the same thing with the horn. The horn's a very physical instrument, and if you don't rest, you're gonna feel fatigued. Your lips are just gonna, the endurance isn't gonna be there because you're bruising. You're not allowing the muscle to heal from the previous day.
Mm-hmm.
You could practice for, some dudes say they practice 6-10 hours a day.
I got one friend say he practices about 12 hours a day, man. And I
Oh,
said, he's
good for him, man. But that's not doing anything for him, man. I hate to say it. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but you
yeah.
know what? There is a correct way of doing it. And you know what? Someone might say to me, Joe, your way is not correct. Okay, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's totally cool, man. But you know what? It works for me. And everyone has their thing that works for them. And that's the way it is. Everyone's different. But I find that taking one day off a week, unless I have a gig, of course, or get a call for something, then then yeah, you do the work. You have to do it. Everyone needs money, so you gotta make it work. But if I don't have anything, and especially right now with the pandemic, with COVID, I had a few one-off gigs here and there, but I still practice every day but Sundays. I take Sundays off, and I feel that it gives you your energy back mentally, physically. Everything's healing in the chops. I find that really helps me just kind of refresh everything and
Mm-hmm.
just balance everything out. And a lot of dudes are afraid to take a day off. I mean, it's not going to do anything, man. You take one day off. I took, during this pandemic, it's hard to find motivation sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was one point where I was like, you know what? I really don't feel like playing. And it bothered me for a bit that I felt that way because I felt like I was getting dark and into a rut. And that's the last thing anyone wants. And I said to myself, you know what? I've never taken a week off straight. Let me take a week off from not playing just to kind of get this bad voodoo out of my head or whatever you want to call it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's like that's everybody, even people that working on jobs. You just got to
Yeah, everyone right now, man. The
take
world's
your vacation every now and then.
Yeah, the world's a fucked up place right now, man. It really is. You know, there's just no other way to describe it. It's
Mm.
completely fucked. And I'm sorry for swearing, but that's it, man. It really is.
It's cool. But
And
that's one reason why I got this show, man. It's like we can basically one on one talk about some of the problems that we all have, and
yeah,
a
no,
couple of
yep,
weeks ago I was talking to another friend of mine on the interview, and we were talking about some kind of way that people basically we don't really get to know these people personally because all we do is see them on stage, and at the same time we don't see that basically, man, I got problems, and I'll be hurting, and some things is happening. I can't pay my bills, and I can't do this,
sure.
and I just can't say that in my horn. Some vocalists might say it, blues singers, they might say it, but you're a trumpet player. You can't basically say, man, there's day my horn, my car got repossessed.
Hmm.
You
Right.
can't speak. And at the same time, we're trying to get to know, and I'm trying to get people that ought to know that, and I would say like this, I was doing some couple of minutes before we got on this interview. I was looking at this guy with a Tower of Power, and he was telling about he had all these different people in his band, and all of them had some kind of substance abuse problem. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Yep.
This seems to be a everyday thing that's going on. I'm a counselor too,
Okay. Cool.
mediator, and I know about when people basically cannot express themselves, what they're going to do, they're going to find another vehicle to let these emotions or this steamed up pressure out. Some
Hmm.
people do it with alcohol. Some people do it with drugs. Some people do it with sex. Some people even gamble. I know a lot of people gamble, man. They gambling addicts, man.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They just gamble,
Yep.
gamble, gamble,
Just
gamble.
as bad, man.
It's
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
So music to me is one way of challenging your energy, letting out steam, showing emotion, showing love and hate, and everything,
Sure.
And and kind of we're getting ready to wind down a little bit, and so basically I'm gonna lead up to these questions. What I'm trying to ask you.
Yep.
In your songwriting, and when you want to write a song, basically, are you basically telling stories or what?
Yeah, man. I mean, so when it comes to composing music, like original music, it's it's almost like a writer. Sometimes you get writer's block. It's the same thing, man. You want to tell the best story that you can. And whether it's a ballad, whether it's a bop tune, swinging, what burning, whatever, man. You always want to tell that story within the tune you're writing, and yeah, that can be challenging. You gotta really, piece it together little by little. And yeah, some people are better at that than others. For me, it takes me a while to write. I actually want to go into the studio next year, mid next year, and cut my first album with my quintet, with all my original music. And I want to write at least 3 more tunes before I do that. So I've been kind of like on the chopping block trying to figure that out myself. Um, so yeah, man, it's just it's all emotion, like how that can come out. I feel like that though emotionally comes out more when you're improvising, when you're taking a solo, you
It's one of
know.
the main things I've read that Miles kind of dissed Wynton one time when he said, "Man, that guy's lame, man, 'cause he ain't got no soul, man. 'Cause wait till he go through a divorce, wait till he have all kinds of problems. When I can see now, the brothers them went through all that now. Wynton went through
Yeah,
bad.
and all that life changing drastic stuff that happened to Miles and can happen and happens to us, that takes a toll on your playing. That can, that can change a lot of things in your head, mentally, physically, that can all definitely, you know it can all definitely intertwine together with how you're feeling while you're playing. That stuff all, it all messes with your mind, man. And that's all physical, so that can definitely come out when you're playing. That can make you not play great. If you're not focused and your mind is wandering and you have other stuff on your mind, that's tension, built up tension that you don't need in your body when you're playing, and that makes trumpet playing difficult.
Yeah.
That's the way that instrument works, man. It's the trumpet, it's a very physical, mentally
Demanding instrument.
challenging instrument in
Demanding
general.
instrument. It's demanding.
Yeah, both physical and mental.
It
That
took me
it's
for a while to learn that because I started playing and basically I kind of got frustrated because I came to a certain point that, especially when I got between the fourth line D, and then I could start learning that I had to pivot and shift my mouth in order to get back in this other high range. And I kind of found out, man, the trumpet ain't too much fun up there, man. You gotta push it, man, and that's when the practice.
Right, but you don't want to push it too much, man. Especially in that case, you want to make sure, you know, that you're using your air, like we talked about this earlier. Like you're using your air to support that note correctly.
Yeah,
Or maybe, this is possible too. Something might have shifted, with your placement. Something might have been something might have weird happened where you
yeah,
shifted. I had a buddy that happened to, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. But he actually ended up shifting his mouthpiece and then just, didn't even think of it. I don't, he doesn't know how it happened. He fixed it. But stuff like that does happen. Your teeth shift as you get older, your lips change, everything. The trumpet is it's so crazy the way it works, because like the slightest thing can throw it off, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So I mean, and then the most important thing is to be focused. Like, don't, like, when I play, I try to be relaxed. I try to be mentally there, and I try to be as focused as possible without, like, I block everything else out, in my surrounding. Like
So
I
what
kind
you're
of just
saying
like
is basically
turn it off.
the instrument and the horn has to be one. Your body and your horn basically has to be one.
Yeah, the horn should become you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. There should be no worries. There should be, no distractions when you're practicing or when you're playing. There should be none of that. You just have to tune all that stuff out, and that's hard. You got to, if you have like some family bullshit going on, and that drama or whatever, or friend drama or whatever, that's still in the back of your head if it just
yeah,
happened. So you got to figure out when you're playing the horn how to let that go and turn it off. So that's another thing, man. It's all mental sometimes. What do they say? Trumpets 95% mental, 5% physical. And I
hmm,
kind of believe that, man. It's it's pretty true. Because if you're focused and you're dialing everything in correctly, then you're going, you're pushing forward. And if you have stuff on your mind and you're worrying about this and that, then you're not focused, and it's going to be a drag to play.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate talking to you today, Joe.
Absolutely, man.
Later
I
on, we can come in for part two of this conversation we got, and I'm gonna have everything a little bit more organized next time. We're gonna have some illustrations and stuff. We can go through a lot of
Sure.
technique and stuff that I'm really interested on. And
Absolutely.
I like to see your horn, man. Yeah.
Love this horn. It's cool. You got the bell seam right there. I always like that. I think it's kind of cool
On
right
the
there.
bell.
Um,
Man.
yeah, man, this is a one of a kind horn. I absolutely love it. But yeah, and it's one of the last ones that was made in the Bronx factory here in New York. So you'll see the serial's 12021. And there's the Bach Loyalist website. You can track all these serial numbers. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, man, it's one of the last ones that was made here in the Bronx. So it's a vintage horn, man, 1953. It's pretty great. I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, okay, all right, then. All right, thank you, Joe, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, Richard. Thank you for having
Now,
me. And
give us some information, man, so we can get in contact with you.
yes, so my website, I had a website. It's being revamped right now, so it's not up and running. It doesn't exist at the moment, but it was. So I'm redoing all that. But the best way to contact me and to check out what I'm doing, here's some video clips I'm posting and pictures, my Instagram. And that's at Joe Pino Music, JoePino Music. And that's the best way to reach out.
Yeah, okay.
What do you got there? That's
I got a Getson.
Shilky with the Yamaha, right?
Yeah, that's a Getson. Yeah, Shilky with a Getson. I found this in.
Oh, it's a Getson. Okay.
Yeah, I found this in the pawn shop, man. It's a Getson.
There you go.
300 series.
Nice.
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
All right then. Well, nice talking to you today, man. And like I'm saying, next week I'll get back with you. Or next month we'll arrange for another part 2 of our series.
Absolutely, totally down. This was great,
I'm a
Richard.
successful trumpet player. I'm gonna bring this up like this. We're gonna do this like this. So
Okay.
the pitfalls and the problems of playing the trumpet, and also how to succeed in playing the trumpet.
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
Then. All right then. Like I'm saying, my name is Mr. Richard. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I know a couple of guys around here, man. You need to hook up with, man. It's a band director. His name is Mr. Bradshaw, Curtis Bradshaw. He's a
Okay.
white, older guy, man. He started something like the Don Ellis Library, you know.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about too, man. You know, Don Ellis, man, played these electric trumpets, man. You know.
Sure, I know Don Ellis.
Valves on them, man.
You got a few of his recordings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he kind of started this library around here in Mesquite, Texas, down here where he was at this college. And then later on, he figured it shouldn't be in Mesquite; it should be around there in his hometown. So he moved to the Los Angeles, man. And they got all his work, all his records. They even got some of those horns out there he had, man.
Wow, that's very cool.
Got this fourth valve trumpet down there with him.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, well, I'm not going to prolong it there. I know you got to go on with the day, man. And you don't go out and make it.